This is Winnats Pass, one of the most iconic climbs in the Peak District, with leg snapping gradients up above 20% in places. And it's a climb I'm going to be tackling today to see just how close to the KOM I can get. It is an absolute brute with gradients hitting up above 20% as you get around the hairpin up there. And it is a climb that really does turn the screw, with the gradient starting pretty tame at the bottom, around 10% as you get up towards the cattle grid. Then as soon as you enter this magnificent valley, the gradients really do start to pitch up. And as I said, when you get around that corner up there, they hit 20% in places, which is absolutely leg snapping. It has truly earned its reputation as one of the toughest climbs in the Peak District. But flipping heck, it is a busy road. Unfortunately, in recent years, this area of the peaks has been receiving some pretty unsustainable amount of tourism. As you can see on a cold winter's day, just how busy this road is getting, and all the erosion off to the side. Yeah, it's not great. So if you are going to come out here and attempt it yourself, be mindful of when you come in, and I definitely recommend not coming anywhere near here on a bank holiday, as you've probably seen some of the crazy news articles over the past couple of years. Now the KOM up here, it's held by none other than Andrew Feather, and for the full climb, including the run into the bottom, he has the KOM at 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Now I wish I could say I want to challenge Feather for the KOM, but I don't think I'm in quite that form at the minute. Maybe one day. But I'd love to get a time of around 6 minutes. That would be a really good effort for me. And to do that, I probably need to be pushing up in the region of 400 watts for the entire climb. Now, when I was planning this video, I had two different ideas of where to actually attempt the climb. Firstly, you could do the National Hill Climb course from 2021 that starts at the cattle grid by the visitor centre and finishes at the cattle grid at the top, and only includes this sort of valley section of the climb. However, if you've done this climb before, you'll know it actually starts quite a bit further down the road in the village of Castleton, and it is a proper drag of around 7% up to where the Nationals course started. So that's the segment I'm going to be trying today. As if I just started from the bottom of the National course, it would really be a bit of a cheat. And if you've watched any of my content lately, you'll have seen my project to upgrade my BMC hill climb bike to get it as close to the 5 kilo mark as possible. And in the most recent episode, I'd managed to drop its weight down to 5.2 kilos. Throw on my Favero pedals, and we're up at about 5.5. And this is the bike I'm going to be riding. And it's a good job that I've got such a light bike behind me, because I'm probably carrying 2 or 3 kilos more than I want to. So having a bike that's a couple of kilos lighter than normal, well, yeah, that's going to make my life a lot easier. Join me as I jump on my newly upgraded BMC hill climb machine to see just how fast I can get up this beast of a climb. Starting the climb then, I try to keep nice and tucked down and keep the power pretty reasonable. As I said before, the climb I'm targeting starts at the bottom of the lane, leaving Castleton. And whilst it looks pretty flat on the camera, you can see the gradient is already up at 6 or 7% in places. I'm trying to keep the power relatively in check here though, as this gradient has got nothing on what I'll be experiencing later, when I'll need every watt I can get. I'm just praying that there's no congestion when we have to cross one of the narrow cattle grids, because so many times in the past I've got stuck in traffic around here. And you can see how busy it is as we're approaching the car park here, but I think I'm going to get a clean run through. I'm just hoping these cars in front of me don't stop and I get a clean run through the cattle grid into the valley. And oh my god, I can't believe how aggressively they're trying to overtake here. But I do manage to get through without having to slow down, and we're on to the main section of the climb now. As you can see, the magnificent valley opens up in front of us, and it's no surprise why it's such a tourist hotspot around here. But whilst it's not that obvious in the footage, I just can't believe how destroyed all the grass is at the side of the road from the ridiculous amount of people walking around here. But very quickly, this climb is getting super tough. The gradient is now solidly in double digits, pitching up to 14-15% even in places. And this is where it's getting tough. If you take a little look at my power,
Summit seems a little bit off, doesn't it? If you watch my video from earlier in the week where I did a full-on effort up the grade, you'll have seen I was averaging like 365 watts for over 10 minutes. But now my power's down in the 340s, 350s. My RPE was through the roof. I felt like this was a complete max effort and I just couldn't get the power up. But if you notice my heart rate, not particularly anything impressive considering I have a max of about 200. I have two theories for what caused this, which we'll discuss later. As we round the corner then, into the slightly more open and less striking section of the valley, this is where the gradients get brutal. And I knew if I was feeling good, this would be the section where I really hammer the power. So you can see I get out of the saddle, trying to kick, but you can see there's just nothing in my legs. I barely even managed to crack 360 here, but I've just got to keep going. And onto the 20% plus ramps now. I am absolutely groveling to keep the bike moving and keep pushing up this climb. There's probably around 2.5 to 3 minutes of climbing left, and I'm suffering. This is the part of the climb that really defeats a lot of people, and the amount of people you see end up having to stop by the side of the road because it is just so steep is phenomenal. Now yes, this is no hard knot pass, but for the Peak District it really is something. I have to say though, being on this ultra light bike is absolutely magical. Even with all the added weight of my cameras, riding a bike that's well in the 5 kilo range is just a phenomenal experience on a climb this steep, giving me every little bit of value out of the very weak, barely even 300 watts I'm pushing at the minute. But I've just got to keep trying and groveling on towards the top, as I know as soon as I get around the corner up ahead, the gradient does ease off ever so slightly. As you can see now, the gradient's settled into sort of 15-16% territory, which is quite an awkward middle ground where it's not super steep, but it's also not nice and smooth by any standards. So it's still at that point where I'm on the edge of wanting to get out of the saddle the whole time. I'm almost thinking 34 tooth chainring was too big at the minute. I should have gone for a 32 or a 30 even. But I can see the top now. That little crest up ahead is where it finishes, and I have one last dig and finally managed to crack the 400 watt mark in places. But yeah, I am on my limit here. Despite my heart rate not even getting above 180 really, I'm going all out. As soon as I crest the top there's a little flat roll to the cattle grid where the segment will end. And again, I'm just hoping I don't get caught behind a little bit of traffic. Fortunately for me, it does clear up as I cross the cattle grid, and I clock a time of 6 minutes and 47 seconds. A whopping 2 minutes slower than Andrew Feather.
Oh, well, yeah, that was quite something of an effort. I think that hard effort up the grade a couple of days ago has left my legs so empty. I think I barely even managed 350 up there. The average power will be embarrassingly low, but I got myself a PB. I knocked about a minute off my best time up there. So, you know, I can't complain too much, especially given the amount of training I've been doing. And just look at this scenery. It is absolutely stunning up here. I don't want to turn this section of the video into pure excuses. None of you clicked on it for that. But there are a couple of things I want to address as to why I think my performance wasn't quite what I expected today. As I said before, I completed the climb in a time of 6 minutes and 47 seconds, requiring just 343 watts and an average heart rate of 176, with both my heart rate and power being way lower than what I'd expect of an effort that felt that hard. You know, both of them nowhere near the usual VO2 max range. However, it's not all bad. Despite expecting a lot more out of myself, that time actually gives me the 133rd fastest time on Strava out of the 34,000 people that have attempted it. So whilst not at the level I expected, it's still, on the whole, not a terrible performance. And if I can get a time like that with such poor power, at least it shows the system efficiency of my bike, my body position and everything was pretty decent. And also, if you're listening to this thinking, what is he on about? Whinging about only doing 343 watts. To give you a bit of context, only 5 days ago, I managed to do 365 watts for 11 minutes up the grade on Swift. And like most people, I usually find I can push far more watts outside doing a hill climb effort. One thing you don't always see on camera when I'm shooting these videos is all the time it takes to actually produce the content, record the intros, get B-roll. And actually today, I think I was stood around for over half an hour shooting all of that, getting cold, as it was probably only about 5 degrees. So despite doing a fairly long warm-up on my way out, all of that had completely gone down the drain by the time I started the effort, and I was actually really quite cold. As you can see, I didn't even take my gloves off for it. Another big, and I think the major factor, was my fueling. Now, I was a bit of an idiot, and in my rush to get out the door, I left my bag full of gels on the worktop, which meant by 12:15 when I was recording the effort, the only thing I'd eaten that morning was about 8 AM a bowl of cereal, which obviously is not ideal at all, and I think was probably the biggest reason for me just not being able to push the power required, despite my heart rate seeming completely in check and not out of control. Bearing in mind, I'd done about 1,000 kilojoules riding out. If, on the other hand, my heart rate was absolutely pegged at max, then it would be a bit of a different analysis here, and I think it would have been fitness related. But the fact that I just could not get my heart rate up signals one of two things: either fatigue, which could be a bit of a factor seeing as I did that really hard effort up the grade on Tuesday, or, as I said, fueling could very likely contribute to that. But enough of them excuses. We all know the real main reason for my poor performance was the ultra non-aero, ultra heavy load of hair I'm still lugging around, as I keep running out of time to actually get around to going to the barbers and getting it all chopped off. But it's got so bad, I'm gonna make sure I get it done on Sunday. And I mean, Winnats Pass is absolutely savage, as you saw, with them really steep gradients that actually go on for quite a long time. A lot of super steep climbs are over very quickly, but the fact it's turning the screw, slowly ramping up as you approach it, and then that big wall with sort of 15 to 20, 21% in place gradients just absolutely does not give you anywhere to hide. But you are surrounded by that magnificent scenery. That valley is something else. Every time you descend down into it, you just see the huge, stunning rocky outcrops above you, and it does feel like you're in like a scene from a film. You do get that real suspense of reality. But unfortunately, as I showed before, it has made it one of the biggest tourist hotspots in the entire Peak District. Combined with the fact that Mam Tor is probably the most popular walk in the Peak District, started from right at the top of Winnats, you know, the amount of traffic in that area and the amount of erosion, I can't believe how bad it's got. And the problems seem to be just accelerating. If you compare it to 4 or 5 years ago, it was nowhere near this bad. And actually, it made me feel quite sad when I was down there filming, seeing the state of the landscape and how ruined it's been by the amount of people. If you look up at Mam Tor as well, above Winnats, it's just more of the same. Hugely eroded sections of grass. It's just not very pleasant when you're out in the countryside, just to see that sheer amount of man-made destruction, all the cars, all the footfall on all the paths. And as much as I really want to encourage people to get outdoors, sometimes it has just gone a bit far. If you want to get yourself out to Winnats Pass, just make sure you do it on a nice quiet weekday if you can. On the most glorious sunny day of the year, stay well clear. When I'm out training, I generally avoid that area and go up the other climb around the back, which is Mam Nick. And whilst not quite as striking, it is still a beautiful climb up there, and one that I have raced a few times as well. And interestingly, also had a bit of a fueling issue on the day. And if you've got a local climb that you think is one of the best climbs, whether it be in Britain or elsewhere, drop it down below and I'll try my best at some point to get out there and give it the spotlight it deserves and see just how good it is compared to my local roads around here in the peaks. I've got loads more content planned on the channel. If you've noticed, I've really been pushing hard to get them uploads out for you at the minute, and it's not stopping anytime soon. I have got a stacked calendar through February and March of trying to hit that 2 uploads a week. So if you don't want to miss any of them videos, get yourself subscribed, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you all in the next one.